Okay.
Right back.
Mhm.
Sorry about that if we got disconnected. We do have pretty good service at this bee yard, but it can come and go from time to time. Another really nice thing to burn up here is this birch bark. It smells really great. I wish you had a little smell-o-vision today. But it makes very good smoker fuel or starter. It's Hannah's favorite smell. So we're just finishing up lighting our smoker, getting it ready for the day. We've been up in Michigan for about the last week. Me and Anna, we've been finishing our first harvest of the season here. And now we're just doing some bee inspections in our out yards, and we're making up some increases. That's when we take a good healthy hive and we can make 2 hives from it. And so the honey's been removed from these bees here in the apiary, and we're going to prep them again for the last fall flow here in Michigan. Currently we have goldenrod coming into bloom. We also have the clovers are still going, sweet clovers. I'll think of some other ones here in a minute, but there's a lot of stuff here for the bees. It's kind of new to us. It's our first year coming to Michigan with the bees. Most of you that know us, we're from Jacksonville, Florida, and we manage bees in the Jacksonville area mostly year-round. We are migratory, and we do move the bees throughout the state for different honey varietals. This is our first big venture out of the state, and it's been a little bit of a learning curve, but we're managing. My parents are originally from right here in this area of Michigan. So in the summer months, there's a lot of blooming plants here that are very beneficial for the bees' health, and there's very little to no toxins or pesticides used in this community. It's an older farming community that's kind of not being managed much anymore. So it went pretty much back to straight nature, and it's been very healthy for our bees, and it should take them into the winter very well. What time are we at? Maybe about 9 o'clock?
Yep, 9:02.
All right. Okay, if we do go offline for some reason, we'll reconnect. You may have to leave the current presentation and go back in and look up the second one. But throughout this presentation, you feel free to ask questions. We're going to be inspecting a couple hives on the spot and see what condition they're in. And maybe if we have some opportunities, we'll explain how we correct maybe some things that we see. I think we have everything. Everything good, Anna?
Yep.
You ready to go?
Yep.
All right, just to give you a kind of a surrounding, we're sitting at around about 100 acres of pasture land, bordered by the state forest on our right here. And it's just filled with different blooming plants and beneficial plants for the bees. This is a 48 hive apiary. That means we have 48 colonies, 4 to a pallet. That makes it easy for us to load and unload the bees from the bee yard. We also, in this area, it's a very big bear territory. So you notice we have the electric fence here surrounding the bee yard, and it is live and active. We did have our first week a little bit of a bear episode at this apiary, but the bear did not do any damage, and that was the only incident we had. Alright. Go ahead and start off where I left off yesterday and pop the lid on this beehive here. We're going to give them a little bit of smoke to calm them down. They're pretty calm, but it's early in the morning here, and sometimes they don't like to be woke up too early. And just a little smoke. The smoke helps break up their communications. And go from there. All right, so we have This is a standard Langstroth beehive. And I'm just want to show a lot of new people that might be getting into beekeeping, already starting bees. When I watch a lot of videos, using your hive tool properly is important. Don't enter your hive directly in the middle. Your queen could be somewhere in this area, and by removing that frame from that tight space, you could accidentally harm her or even kill her. So what I prefer to do is start on the outside edge of the box, using the hook end of the tool, and just loosen up the frames gently. Once I get the first frame, the second frame broke loose from the propolis, I use the flat end to leverage it up and just gently ease it out of the space. Don't get in a real big hurry. They'll sense your fast reactions. So our first frame we pull out. Typically the outside frames are mostly nectar and food or pollen. This particular frame is nectar. So the bees are, yesterday we've noticed they are starting the new nectar flow, and it's actually dripping from the hive. So this frame is primarily just a nectar frame. These weird wax formations we have right here are just what we refer to as bridge comb. That's when the bees connect from one frame to the other to give them a connection to cross over to the other frames. Sometimes they will actually use the space to raise drone bees. The hive is made up of 3 types of bees: 1 queen bee, 97+% worker bees, which are female, and then a small percentage of male drones. I have a male drone. I don't know if you can see her, but he's crawling right here at the tip of my tool. He's just moving around, and there's another drone right here beside him. So there's 2 drones. But the majority of the bees you're seeing are all female workers. And this is, again, just mostly a food frame full of nectar. The bees are bringing, there's a little pollen. I don't know if Anna can get a video of that, but there's a little, get my shadow out of the way. There's a little pollen, a little bit of yellows in here. We noticed that this week the pollens have started darkening up a little bit. We're getting a little bit of light pollen, but some darker oranges this week. Alright, so we're going to move on in. So now that we've taken the first frame out carefully, it's given us a lot larger space to be able to remove the remaining frames and inspect them individually without damaging any bees or harming any bees or the queen. Now we're going to pull this one out and just take a quick scan for the queen. A lot of people will have a hard time finding the queens. I'll usually, I don't know if she's got my face in it, but I'm looking at an angle like this, kind of at a little bit of a, like I'm landing into it. A lot of times you'll see her kind of moving around easier that way than just looking straight ahead at it. Also, when you're looking at the frame, you might want to look quickly around the perimeter first to be sure she doesn't walk around. And then flip your frame over and inspect the other side. Again, look at the frame edge and then check the body of the frame. I don't look at each individual bee looking for the queen. I'm usually just looking at a big wide angle and seeing something that's unusual or out of place. She's larger than the worker bees, and a lot of people will confuse these male drones right here with queens. One thing when you find a drone and you're not sure if it's the queen or not, just simply look at the eyes. The eyes are really large. He's kind of got his head down, and they kind of touch. So that would not be the queen. The queen's thorax, which is this middle section of her body, will be more predominant than the worker bees. So it'll be usually polished kind of black color. And you'll notice, so this side of the frame is mostly just drawn comb. It looks like they've polished this area ready for the queen to make her way over here to lay eggs. But currently it's unused area. A little bit of nectar up on the edges. So that's an indication that they're probably prepping the area for her to lay some brood or eggs. On this side of the frame, yes, this area here is all eggs. I don't know if the camera can get down in there today, but maybe give it a minute. You might see the little white sticks inside of there. Can you see them, Anna?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Those are the eggs. The queen had just laid those eggs within 3 days. So at this moment, we don't really need to do more inspection than what we've done now. We know that we have an active queen laying eggs, and we can just close up the hive at this point in time. But if you're new and you want to, you know, one better way to learn than actually to dig through the hive and see what else we can find. We noticed that just a little bit of right here, where the bees are kind of, there's a little bit of cap brood right here. This brood is older brood that's probably getting ready to emerge as new worker bees, and then they've got some more pollen in this area right here. So as they make the nectar, they mix the nectar and the pollen together. As the egg hatches into a larva, they feed that bee bread that they've made to the larva. As that larva develops into a pupa, they cap it with these tan cappings. And it's for a new beekeeper, it takes a little bit, but to get familiar with the difference between capped pupa or capped honey. And maybe as we go through this, we may get a little bit of capped honey we can take a look at and see the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and place this frame back in the box. And go to the next one. Just give them a little wiggle and they'll pretty much leave you alone or move out of the way. Alright, now let's see what they have here. Alright, we have much more capped brood. There's about 27 baby pupa per square inch. The frame's about 9 inches by 19 inches, so if you did the math, there's several thousand babies on this frame. This observation is another drone bee, just for, it's not the queen, but it's just a drone walking amongst a bunch of female workers. Alright, take a look at the other side. Something I'm observing about the brood and the bees this time is they have a nice shiny looking coat. Their wings look fresh and young. And the cat brood is very solid and consistent and healthy looking. We have a few missing cells. That's not unusual. But this hive is thriving and very healthy, and it's going to expand in population rapidly in the next couple weeks. And it's in perfect timing for the upcoming honey flow we have here in the area. We have here a little cell cup. This is a queen cup. We'll refer to this as an emergency cup. There's no actual queen started in this, but if the bees had the desire to raise a new queen, they would place an egg in here and they would start to feed it just royal jelly. The royal jelly would develop that larva into a queen bee and not a worker bee. That's the only difference between a worker and the queen, is the actual food that they're fed at early on in life. I don't see a queen on this side. A nice looking frame of cat brood. That's what we like to see. We've seen some eggs, so that's evidence that the queen has been actively working. The brood chamber doesn't have, this is the area that the queen lives, doesn't have a lot of, here's another great frame of cat brood. Some pollen along the edge. Maybe a few eggs out here on the edges. Did we get any questions yet, Anna?
No.
No questions? I'm probably answering them all. No, I thought I saw the queen, but it's not. Just again, more cat brood, developing brood. Some, we call the larva when they start to feed it milk brood. I don't know if you can see down in those cells very well with the sun angle. Here, I'm going to try to come in like that, but it's kind of wet and milky looking. That's where they've actually started feeding those larvae that bee bread we referred to. And then over here, we have an early morning bee. I just seen her right here. You can see just a little pollen on her hind leg right there. You see that, Anna?
Yep.
She just came in from probably early morning flight and collected some pollen, and she's trying to contribute that to the hive to help feed those babies. Alright. I'm going to go to the next frame. Maybe we'll stumble into this queen bee here eventually.
Someone said, how often should you go and check on the hives?
It varies. Newer beekeepers that are just getting started, maybe a little more frequently to get more experience. I usually recommend, it's overwhelming to look at a hive the first time as you're getting into it. So you definitely want to get some hands-on mentoring if it's available in your area. That's the best learning, but you want to start to learn all the different parts of the hive, like we're going through today, and understand what you're looking at. But probably as little as 7 to 10 days during the spring months, and then during the winter months you won't need to observe them very often. In Florida, we usually don't mess with the bees much from November to January. They're pretty much dormant or less active, and there's not much need to take a look. So the winter months, other than an outside observation of them, we don't really go in at this level. But during the spring months, more active, we're trying to make sure the queens are active and things are coming along well. We're also managing for swarms, which is where the hive naturally reproduces. The queen and half of the bees leave into the woods to create a new home, and the bees that are left behind raise a new queen. So we'll do swarm management in the early spring, starting in Florida, our part of Florida, North Florida, in February, and continue that through probably mid-April before we start our honey flow. So every area, I'm not sure where you're from, is a little different, but more active, more inspections in the spring, 7 to 10 days in the active part of the season, maybe 2, well, when you go through honey flow, we don't do many inspections unless we think we observe something wrong, but honey flow might last, anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks. We wouldn't take the honey off just to inspect the brood nest. We would just let them go through the honey flow. So it just depends season to season how frequently you might check them. We're checking these bees. This is their first inspection since Michigan, and it's been 7 weeks. So just to give you an example, they've been on a honey flow most of the time, and they haven't. I haven't had a need to inspect them. I've had a few of them that have had some issues that I had to deal with, but not on the majority. So we're just looking again, mostly cat brood. I'm trying to scan for the queen. Don't see her here either.
Someone said, do they make those cells, or are they premised into the frame?
So the bees actually draw all the cells themselves with beeswax and extrude it from their abdominal. So when the bees are healthy and there's a good nectar flow, they're able to, the bees about 14 days old, secrete a waxy substance from their platelet under their exoskeletal platelets, wax glands, and they form that into little wax honeycombs. I'll try to show you one maybe here that doesn't have a lot going on. This is a honey super, and in the honey super, the bees are actually starting to shape this wax comb up. But this comb is all developed by the bees. So they draw, we call it drawing. They draw the wax up into the shape of these hexagons, and they will store their baby. They'll raise their babies. They'll store their pollen and their nectar in the comb. The pollen is their nutrition. It's their proteins, minerals, vitamins, amino acids. Whereas the honey is their carbohydrate. That gives them the energy to do their work throughout the day. So they're not just on a strictly a honey diet. Let me see if I can show you another frame maybe. Okay, here's an example. So what we do give the bees to start off is a plastic foundation that's coated with beeswax. We do this because it's durable and reusable, recyclable, sustainable for the bees. You can see they started drawing off the first of the honeycomb here to build up so they can start storing nectar in this area of the hive. Let's see what they're doing over here. They might be they're still sleeping a little bit. It's early in the morning. They're not working much here. A little bit of wax right here. So this frame, they're just kind of getting started building wax on it. But by the end of this flow, that probably will be completely drawn out and filled with honey. You know what I think? I forgot the queen could be in that. Put that box on it without the excluder. Alright, so let's see if we can find the lady. Can we get lucky today?
Someone said, how would you manage a swarm?
Swarm management is usually based on the health of the hive, the time of the season mostly. There's a couple different scenarios. You would visually observe swarm cells being created. This is another one of those little cups. I call these emergency cells. This is if they want to start to raise a queen. They'll draw swarm cells along typically the bottom bar of the frame here, just like they've done here. This is inactive. Or they might draw them along the border edges of the frame here. If you were to see those cells, and I might be able to show you one on the next hive, because I believe that the hive beside us here has one. You would need to take some action going forward, whether you're going to either choose to let them naturally swarm and reproduce a new queen on their own, or if you're going to, most beekeepers don't want to lose their bees into the trees, so we will split them into another hive, sometimes 2 or 3 hives on a swarm hive. So if we identify it as a hive ready to swarm, or the beginning stages of a swarm, we will divide this hive up into multiple pieces, equal pieces, and we would either let them raise a new queen in those different hives, take advantage of the swarm cells they've already created that are queens, probably the queens of the highest quality are swarm cells, and let them queen those hives individually. But when we divide the hive up into multiple pieces, we still have a parent queen that's ready to swarm. We may still lose that queen and part of those bees if they still have that desire to swarm after being split into multiple hives by reducing the population. If we reduce the population and give them more room to work, it may break the tendency to swarm. All right, I don't see the queen here. Lots of bees though. Hopefully maybe the last frame will be the winner.
Are the darker frames better than the lighter ones?
I like the darker ones on the brood, this nest part we're in, because there's the queen right there. Annie, you got a good picture of her?
Yeah.
So she's a little bit, she's a little shy. Come on out, lady. There she goes, right there. She's just kind of running down on the bottom border. Coming up to me. Some queens are a little more shy, camera shy than others, and some will just keep doing their business and don't care about who's paying attention. You notice some bees trying to keep up with her. Those are the court. Those bees are feeding her and taking care of her. Oh, she's going to sneak over to the other side on us. Let's see if we can keep up with her. I lost track of her.
Someone says, I see honey in my brood box. How much honey is okay to see in there?
This is an 8-frame brood box I'm running, and little to no honey in this area would be good. But if you're running the full 10 frames of bees, anywhere from 2 to 3 frames of honey in there, it would be ideal. If you start seeing 4, 5, 6 frames of honey in the brood box, one of the concerns may be the health of the bees. They don't, unless you've crowded them and not given them a place to put nectar, and they start backfilling the brood area with just nectar only or pollen only, there's a sign that you have a failing queen. She may not be producing enough eggs to feed, so they're actually bringing in more food than she's working. So that's sometimes an indication of a queen is getting older or failing. Here she is again over here, hiding down here, coming out. But sometimes it's an indication of crowding. But I do actually pull out honey frames from the brood nest from time to time and spin the honey from them, and I will put them back in as just drawn comb, and it gives the queen more area to lay eggs. All right, well, we got to see the queen. That's pretty great. Good day. She's laid out about 6+ frames of of babies, and she's almost out of room actually for laying eggs. There's a little space in here. This configuration of 8 frames is a little bit on the small side for what we're doing. I'm going to start, I don't know if you noticed these 2 holes over here on the side of the box. This is actually an internal feeder that we use to feed the bees during the winter months. And we're going to start removing these and adding the 2 frames in for the next season. It's just a lot of work. There's about 600 of those. 6 to 1,200 of those I got to pull out of service. So right now we're just leaving them in. But again, we had the honey frame. Let's check that one outside frame before we close up just to see. This is one honey frame in this brood nest. And then we're going to see what we have out here on the outside real quick. And this is just another honey, a little bit of honey starting to come in on this. So they got some nectar here. I'd like to see a little more pollen in here. They're consuming the pollen at about the rate they're raising babies. With the fall flowers starting to come in here in the area, particularly that goldenrod, it's a heavy pollen producer. That should start to get them a little bit of pollen storage to work with. Oop, I put that back together wrong. I like to keep this one here. I'm gonna put this one back. All right. What time do we at, anybody?
It is 9:25.
Okay, 9:25. And then let me grab an excluder here. So this device right here is used to keep the queen down below. So a lot of people, so she'll stay in the lower box, and then we're going to take the honey super and place it back over the top of the excluder. Now the queen can't get up in this area of the hive, but the worker bees can, and the worker bees will start to fill this area in with nectar and honey that we can harvest later. And we'll go ahead and put the lid back on. What time was it?
9:25.
9:25. We got a little bit more time. Let's hope our smoker stayed smoking. There it goes.
What does it mean that they've been on a honey flow?
That's when nature provides an ample amount of flowers that are blooming and providing nectar or pollen for the bees to work. We have times of the year that are what we refer to as dearths. Particularly in Florida right now, there's a summer dearth. Hence the reason we bring the bees to Michigan where there is no summer dearth. Dearth just simply means that there's the plants are not producing a nectar source for the bees to feed from or pollen. And so the bees will shut down for that time of the year, and it's a little bit unhealthy for them. It hurts their nutrition. They work really hard in the spring and build up lots of bees and lots of mouths to feed. And so when the summer months come, they slow down on raising new baby bees, and that can affect the health of the hive some when the population drops down. So throughout the season, we have a spring bloom in Florida that lasts about, well, it lasts a good part of the year, but there's major flows and minor flows. So a major flow would be when the bees are bringing in ample surplus nectar that they're actually able to store in the honey supers that we can harvest the honey from later. And there's minor flows that just are like survival or sustainable flows that just keep the bees healthy and fed through the season. So when we refer to a flow, it's just simply the nature providing ample amount of food for the bees to feed. There are times of the year, particularly the winter months, when there is no blooming plants, and bees have to live simply on the stores that are left from the earlier part of the year. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a peek at this one. I think this one has a little special problem. This is the last one I checked yesterday, so I saved it for today. Just going to quickly open them up. Give them a little bit of smoke if you can, Anna.
Okay.
Anna's been working with me for the past 7 days, mostly from sunrise to sunset every day, helping me take care of all the needs of the bees, and we're getting kind of tired and worn out. We're going to head back to Florida here, hopefully Sunday. Now this hive, the population's not quite as good as the previous one we just checked, so that's an indication there might be something going on. The first thing I would think is a queen replacement, meaning that they've lost their other queen for one reason or another. So we have a food frame. It's a little bit of nectar and some pollen in here.
Does the smoker hurt them?
No, the smoke actually doesn't seem to affect them. We think that from a natural standpoint, the bees think it's a forest fire, and so they start to gorge on honey. At the same time, they communicate purely with pheromones, and those pheromones can be alert pheromones that there might be a predator and to be aggressive. So the smoke, simply we block the pheromone temporarily so that the bees get comfortable with us working in the hive and don't show aggression. So we just use a little tiny smoke just as we enter the hive to, ease their minds that we're not here to be aggressive or mean. So this hive looks similar to the last one. We have a nice looking frame of nectar, pollen, some capped brood. We have some little bit of a burr comb here. This was at one time used to raise drone bees, male drones here. So it's just an old remnants of that. Again, a nice frame of a little bit of brood. So we got that. You can see a lot of similarities here. A little bit of old residual brood hatching. Now they're starting to backfill the center of the frame in with nectar and pollen. That's sometimes what we don't want to see. That means that the queen hasn't revisited this area in a while and to lay eggs, and it throws up a question mark to me. Why hasn't she been there to fill that back in? Same thing here. We're seeing capped brood and some nectar in here filling the old holes where the bees have hatched. Again, the queen has not laid that area back like she should have. So it starts to throw up a little red flag for me. That do we have a healthy queen, or something happened to the queen? As we go forward, let's just going through this again. Just mostly nectar. The person that asked about how much nectar in the frame, sometimes this is the indication what I was talking about. It could be an unhealthy situation. A lot of drone combs. Now on this is not a good example, but this cell right here was an actual active swarm cell. Maybe another one down here, but we actually have one right here that's remnant. I'm going to take a good guess that this is where a queen would have been raised for the colony to swarm. When one of these older queens hatch as a virgin, she puts out a piping sound, and that will trigger the other queens like this one to pipe back, and that's almost doomed for this queen. So that queen that has hatched early will actually approach this cell and sting this queen in the cell and kill her. Just from experience, I would say 90% of the time this is a dead queen in that cell based on the age of this colony in the cell. Just again, nectar. So where this is leading to is we're not seeing any young fresh eggs, larvae, some older capped brood. The bees hatch in 3 weeks. So within the past 2 weeks, the queen has not laid an egg or larva. The queen cells hatch in 14 days, so we've seen the cells that might have hatched. So we may have had a queen replacement that either failed or is in the process of correcting itself. Excuse me. We got some more residual queen cell. These are old queen cells here. Kind of see it's still closed up. It may be. It's kind of a funny shape. It's not a normal, nice, elongated queen cell. Some residual old cells here. So there is definitely something that's happened. It looks like the hive has swarmed. It may have had a queen failure on the replace. It did not replace the queen successfully. A little old capped brood. Remember, this is approaching 3 weeks old. This is the last of the baby pupa to hatch. So once this last bit of brood hatches, the population will start to decline, and we don't want that to happen. Did I check both sides of that one before I put that back? Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's something very interesting. Here we go. Here's a good sign of some queen cells. I saw this yesterday when I was doing this inspection, and I see something that's very interesting, is that yesterday all three of these cells were capped, just like this lower one and this middle one. But this top one, the cap is open now. So I know now, since just yesterday, that this queen is hatched out. So there is a new virgin queen running inside this hive today. And she'll, in the next couple days, go out and do a mating flight and return back to the hive. These other two cells may still hatch and have to fight to the death to see who takes over the hive. When I see this situation, now notice the cells are in the middle of the comb, not out on the perimeter edge. This is typically the area that the bees create supersedure cells. In this case, the bees weren't going to swarm, but they were trying to replace a failing queen. And it looks like this was successful of them raising a new queen. So we're going to go ahead and leave the bees do their own thing and let nature take its place. And we would check back on this hive in the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to see that we have a new queen laying eggs. If we do, then everything's good. If not, we would consider combining this colony with another colony of bees to merge them together. Or we could actually possibly still introduce a new queen into this hive with some extra brood from another donor hive and kind of reboost the hive back on its own. But we still have some pretty good cap brood. We'll have some pretty good young bees. I would check back on this in about 2 weeks. If we don't have an active queen in 2 weeks, we'll definitely probably try to requeen it. It's got a pretty good bee population, and you're going to have a few more. So that kind of winds up the inspection on this one. I hope that helped people that might already have bees that don't always know what they're exactly looking at. I know there was a couple unique situations here, particularly watching them backfill the brood area with nectar and pollen is an indication there could be a queen issue. This hive also, if you don't do your inspections from time to time, you may miss opportunities. If this hive was to get more than 3 to 4 weeks old queenless without any intervention, this hive would literally be would perish. The bees would still be active for the next couple, 3 to 6 weeks, but they would start to dwindle down slowly but surely until they didn't exist anymore. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Somebody said, can wasps make honey?
They do collect nectar. Wasps will actually at times try to be opportunists around the beehives and collect the nectar from the bees for their own carbohydrates. They do visit plants just like honeybees do, and they do collect the nectar for their carbohydrate, but they do not store. Honeybees, the Apis mellifera is the only bee that, or the apis I should say, or Apis mellifera is the only bee species that actually stores honey like this. Now, Apis mellifera has several subcategories. In Mexico, they have the stingless version that has no stingers, and they also produce small amounts of nectar, but they're all under that Apis category, Apis mellifera category. Honey-bearing bees. All right, well, we're getting close to wrapping up, and I hope you enjoyed your visit here to Michigan. If you're from Florida, where I'm from, I'm just going to rub it in. We woke up this morning to 60-degree morning. It's probably 68, 70 degrees right now as we do this inspection. It's beautiful. It's been very beautiful up here. Good weather. We did reach 82 yesterday and a little bit of humidity. But I felt like I was still in air conditioning doing this versus in Florida at 100 degrees. So aside from keeping bees in Florida, there's advantages to being here in the summer as well. We do still have a couple hundred colonies back in Florida. They're in the black mangrove swamps right now along the Intercoastal Waterway. We did harvest that honey just a week ago, and they're now working on some palm to keep fed down there in Florida. And then we'll be rolling into Brazilian pepper in September. So that's kind of the bee report, and We're going to sign off here from Michigan. Me and Anna, we're going to go back to work today, and we've got 2 hard days of cleanup and packing, and we'll start heading our way back to Florida. Hope to see you there. If you have any future questions, we're going to be live again tonight at 6 from the honey trailer. We actually have a complete mobile extraction trailer here on site, and we're going to do maybe a little bit of honey demo extraction there in the trailer and answer questions at the 6 o'clock hour. Enjoy the rest of the day. Visit our sponsors and our vendors that are helping participate in today's activities. We thank you for visiting and enjoying this. It's our 3rd Honeybee Festival. We wish we could have done it live as we had in the past for those that have been there. But with the circumstances of this year, we just thought it would be a little bit better to do it from our office. So you got to see it live in action. Y'all have a good day today. Thank you.